Hello everyone, I'm Victoria and welcome to my Instant Grammar Help video tutorials. Today we're going to talk about relative clauses. First, let me show you some examples and explain what relative clauses are. The teacher who inspired me the most was Mr. Johnson. The teacher which inspired me the most was Mr. Johnson. The first one is correct and the second one is incorrect. Why is that? Or look at this example. She called me late at night, which was surprising. She called me late at night, that was surprising. Why is the first sentence correct, whereas the second one is incorrect? That's what I'm going to explain you. But let me first start with the notion of a clause, what a clause is, because some of you have asked before. So what is a clause? A clause is a basic unit of grammar. It must contain a subject and a predicate, a verb or a verb phrase, and there should be a meaningful relationship between a subject and a verb. Let me show you an example. We're going to the restaurant tonight. In this sentence, we is a subject and are going to the restaurant tonight is a predicate, a verb phrase. Okay, as you can see, we're going to the restaurant tonight is a full sentence because it has its meaning, it conveys an idea. However, is a clause always an independent sentence? Not always. Let me show you one more example. When she left. If you look at this sentence, you can see she is subject, yes, and left is a verb. But is it an independent sentence? No, it is a dependent clause or a subordinate clause because it really doesn't tell you a lot of information. You kind of feel that there should be something else. And if you add some information, for instance, when she left, it was raining, then the sentence is meaningful. And this it was raining is an independent clause. So now when you know what a dependent clause and independent clause are, let me show you something else. An independent clause and a dependent clause form a complex sentence. And these sentences can be linked with relative pronouns that, whose, who, which, whom, or relative adverbs where, why, how, when. So let's have a look at what we use and when we use relative clauses. Relative clauses give you extra information or identify someone or something in the main clause. And so to link those sentences or clauses, we use relative pronouns, as I mentioned before. The lady who helped me find my phone is very kind. When you read the sentence, you can see a relative pronoun who, which links two clauses. The independent one, the lady is very kind, and a dependent one, who helped me find my phone. In both clauses, we can see that the subject is the same, the lady. The lady is kind and she helped me find my phone. So this relative pronoun functions here as a subject. However, it's not always the case. Look at this sentence. The laptop which you recommended is on sale. This is a relative clause. You can see which you recommended or that you recommended. However, the main sentence here, the laptop is on sale, and the dependent one is which you recommended. In this part, which you recommended, you have a subject, you, right? So this relative pronoun, that or which, functions as an object, not a subject. So that's a little bit of theoretical introduction. And let me show you more examples. If you look at this sentence, my neighbor who had a party last night got on my nerves. You can see we link it by the relative pronoun who, and she called me late at night, which was surprising. These are both relative clauses, but in the first one, you can see I'm not using any commas, whereas in the second one, there is a comma. And why is that? There are two types of relative clauses in English, defining or restrictive and non-defining non-restrictive relative clauses. Defining relative clauses give us some essential information. They define the person or the thing in the main clause. Where is the bag I brought yesterday? You can see if I'm just asking, where is the bag? It's not really clear which bag I'm referring to. That's why we are not using commas in written forms. And we cannot actually omit this information. Whereas this second example, my sister who lives in Spain is coming to visit me next week. You can see here I'm using these commas, right? Because who lives in Spain is just extra information. And if I skip it, I'm saying, for example, my sister is coming to visit me next week. This sentence still makes sense. So that's the difference between defining and non-defining relative clauses. So let me just highlight it again. Defining clauses give essential information, and we cannot omit this information from just because it doesn't make sense, then the sentence doesn't make sense. Yes, the laptop you recommended is on sale. Whereas non-defining clauses, they give extra information that can be skipped. We use commas to separate non-defining relative clauses from the rest of the sentence. My brother, who recently graduated from university, got a new job. As you can see here, if you skip this part, my brother got a new job, it still makes sense. And this information, who recently graduated from university, just gives us extra information. Okay, now I hope it's clear when we use commas and when we do not use commas. Let's move on. Let's talk about relative pronouns, because as I mentioned before, those are that, who, whose, which, etc. So, but when do we use them, and are they always, can they be substituted, yes, with each other? So let's talk about defining clauses. And I just want to remind you, defining clauses are those that give us essential information, and we do not use commas. As you can see in this table, with people, we can use who or that, whose and whom. With things or animals, we use that, whose, and which. Let's look at this sentence. The friend who or that called lives nearby, right? So you can see that this is essential information, because if I'm saying the friend lives nearby, it's not clear which friend I'm referring to. Yes? Okay. So if you look at this sentence, the book that I borrowed is fascinating. This is about the book thing, and still I'm using that or which. You can see that can be used interchangeably with people and things in defining clauses. Please remember, only in defining clauses, because that's very essential. I'm going to show you non-defining clauses. And if you remember, these are with commas. These are sentences that give you extra information, clauses that give you extra information. In this case, we cannot use that with people or things. We cannot substitute this pronouns who or which with that. And this is something what people usually find confusing. I bought a new car which has excellent fuel efficiency. I can say just, I bought a new car, and that's enough. But if I want to add some information, which is maybe not very essential at this moment, I can say, it has excellent fuel efficiency. So which is like a comment, yes, here, and a comment connector, let me say. And therefore, you cannot use that instead of which, because it's a non-defining clause, and we're using a comma here. Okay, so just keep in mind that is incorrect. Let's have a look at another example. Mark, whom I liked, has invited me to the dinner. Okay, I cannot say Mark that I like has invited me to the dinner, because this is a non-defining clause, and that's why we cannot use that instead of whom or who or which. In this case, it's about the person, so apparently who or whom. I hope it's clear why we cannot use that in non-defining clauses right now. Let's move on. So now let's talk about relative pronoun which and how we can use it in non-defining clauses. We can use it as a comment sentence. Let me show you an example. She's always late for the meetings, which is so annoying. We can use this sentence in two parts as two separate sentences. She is always late for the meeting. It is so annoying. But you can also link them together by using these connector which, right? So that's a comment sentence then, which is so annoying. Here is another example. They offered him a job, which was quite unexpected. Yes, we can see it's a comment sentence as well. So we can also use relative pronoun which as a general purpose connector. So the weather is getting colder. This means we should bring jackets. So we can just link these two sentences and it will sound this way. The weather is getting colder, which means we should bring jackets. Instead of this means we use which when we connect two sentences. And let me show you one more example. After prepositions. The project is running behind schedule. The blame for this falls on the management team. Again, when we connect and we use these word after the preposition for, we should use which. The project is running behind schedule. The blame for which falls on the management team. So you can see that which can be used as a general purpose connector, as a comment clause, let's say as a connector, yes, for the comment clause, and after prepositions. Okay, hopefully it makes sense, and now you understand better when we use commas, when we do not use commas, and when we can substitute that or when we can substitute who and which was that, and when we cannot do it. Now it's time to practice, and I would like to show you some exercises. Here are two sentences. The teacher explained the topic clearly, and she has a lot of experience. I'll give you some time to think and connect these two sentences using relative pronouns and commas if needed. Okay, let's have a look. I hope you have this one. The teacher, who has a lot of experience, explained the topic clearly. I'm using commas here because this is not a non-defining clause, right? It's extra information, and you can see the teacher explained the topic clearly is a complete sentence, but this information about the experience is not essential, it's just extra information. Okay, let's move on. Here are two sentences. The book has been really popular. It explains the history of ancient Rome. All right. I hope you created the same sentence. The book that explains the history of ancient Rome has been really popular, or we can use which in this case. This is a defining clause, right? Because it really identifies, it explains which book, the book that explains the history of ancient Rome. Because if you just say the book has been really popular, it's not clear which book or what book we are talking about. Okay, and we do not have to use commas here because it's a defining clause. Okay, you can see it's highlighted. So the next pair is David is studying medicine. His parents are both doctors. Okay, let's have a look at what you have. Dave, whose parents are both doctors, is studying medicine. It's a non-defining clause whose parents are both doctors because it's extra information. Therefore, we should use commas, right? As you can see, yes, because David is studying medicine is enough to understand what you want to say, and information about his parents is just extra. All right, John wrote a fantastic novel. It became a bestseller. Let's check what you have. John wrote a fantastic novel, which became a bestseller. In this sentence, we should use a comma because it's a comment clause, right? You remember, it's just a comment, so it became a bestseller. All right. Okay, that's all for today. I hope that now you understand what defining and non-defining relative clauses are, when we should use commas and when we can omit those. And if you want to learn more about participle clauses and reduced relative clauses, you can watch my next video about those grammar points. And if you like the video, just share it and subscribe to my channel. See you. Bye bye.